$20,877,000,000. That is what Americans reported losing to internet crime in 1 year. 2025, 1,008,000 complaints, 26% more than the year before, and the first year the figure has ever crossed 20 billion. But that number is only the theft. The theft is the easy part. In 1931, the United States government had a problem with a man in Chicago. They could tie him to bootlegging, to extortion, to a great deal of blood. They could not put any of it in front of a jury and make it hold. So they went after the only thing he could not hide, the spending. They got him on tax evasion. Al Capone did not go to prison for what he took. He went to prison for what he could not explain, and that is the whole problem. Still, 95 years later. Taking the money is simple. Explaining it is where people go to prison. A stolen dollar is not a clean dollar. It is a dollar with a receipt attached, a wire that came from somewhere, an account that belongs to someone, a car you bought with a wire fraud. Every one of those is a thread, and a thread leads somewhere, so the money cannot simply be moved. It has to be rebuilt, given a new origin, a new history, an explanation that survives being asked a second time. They call it laundering. I spent years inside a bank's financial intelligence unit, reading alerts on a screen. And the thing nobody tells you about dirty money is that it is not anonymous. It is the opposite. It is money with a memory. Every dollar that moves through the regulated system leaves a record it did not choose. Timestamps, account numbers, counterparties. The system was built to remember, and it does not forget on request, which means the criminal's problem is not moving money. It is that the money remembers where it came from, and the laundering is the work of giving it something else to remember. There is a framework for how that work gets done. 3 stages. It was named decades ago by investigators watching cash-based drug trafficking, and it is old enough that you might expect it to be obsolete. The rails have changed completely since then. Cash became wires. Wires became crypto. It has never once changed the job. Committing them to memory is worth it. Once you can see the 3 stages, you start to see the machine underneath. It is sitting beneath almost any financial crime you will ever read about. Stage 1. Placement. Getting the money into the system at all. A suitcase of cash is not spendable at scale. It has to become a balance somewhere before it can become anything else. This is the single riskiest step, and it always has been. It is the only moment where the criminal is physically standing next to the money in a building with cameras and a compliance officer. Every stage after this one happens at a distance. This one does not, which is why so much effort goes into it. Cash-intensive businesses that can absorb an unexplained daily surplus. Deposits broken into pieces small enough that nobody asks. Couriers carrying value across a border in person. The typologies vary. The purpose never does. Get it inside. Stage 2. Layering. Once the money is inside, it moves and moves and moves again. Not toward anything. That is the part people get wrong. Layering has no destination. It has a purpose, and the purpose is distance. Accounts to accounts, jurisdictions to jurisdictions, entity to entity. It continues until the paperwork between the crime and the balance is thick, thick enough that following it stops being worth anyone's afternoon. Every hop erodes the trail. The clearest example anyone has is the one investigators called the Russian Laundromat. Between 2010 and 2014, journalists and Moldovan investigators traced billions moving out of Russia. The structure ran on more than 20 shell companies, fake court judgments to justify the transfers, cooperative banks in Moldova and Latvia to carry them. Read the corporate filings and it looks like commerce. Directors, registered addresses, loan agreements, every document exists. One purpose, distance. Layering is also where the professions arrive. Trade-based laundering hides value inside real shipments. A container of goods invoiced at 10 times what it actually holds, or a tenth. The difference is a payment that looks like commerce all the way down, and none of that works without help. Company formation agents, accountants, lawyers, professional enablers. Most of the structure in a serious laundering case was not built by a criminal. It was built by someone with a professional qualification, doing paperwork that is entirely legal in isolation. A shell company is not a crime. A loan agreement is not a crime. They only become one when the wrong person is holding the pen. The crypto version of layering has a name too. Chain hopping, value converted across different blockchains and services in sequence, each conversion breaking the direct link a step further. Same logic as the Moldovan banks. Faster, cheaper, and running at all hours. Stage 3, integration. This is where the money comes home, where it stops hiding and starts being spent as salary, as investment return, as property, as a business that appears to be doing well. Vancouver gave the pattern its own name. Investigators reviewing British Columbia's casino and property sector described what became known as the Vancouver model. Proceeds cycled through casinos and then into real estate. The money arrives as an asset with a clean paper history and an ownership chain that looks entirely ordinary. Integration is the point of all of it. Money that is never spent was never worth stealing. A balance that can never be touched is not wealth. It is a number in an account the owner is afraid of, which is why integration isn't optional. Every criminal who gets this far has to eventually walk into the daylight and buy something. And that is exactly where they become visible again. Capone's mistake was not the bootlegging. It was the spending, and every laundering case since has been a more sophisticated attempt to solve that same problem. Here is what the framework does not tell you, and what took me years on an alert desk to understand. The 3 stages are not 3 separate crimes. They are one continuous chain, and a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Placement can be perfect. Layering can be beautiful. If integration puts a name on a deed, the whole thing collapses backward, and it collapses in the direction nobody plans for. Backward, toward the placement that happened years earlier, in a branch, on a camera. That is the asymmetry at the center of this entire business. The launderer has to get all 3 stages right, every time. The investigator only has to get one. Investigators do not need the whole picture. They need one clean thread. That is what the detection system is built to find. The suspicious activity report. When a regulated institution sees activity it cannot explain, it files, and the filing goes to a financial intelligence unit. In the United States, that is FinCEN. No single report catches anyone. That is not what it is for. The value is aggregate, thousands of institutions filing independently, and patterns appearing across them that no one bank could ever see alone. And then the rails changed again, this time against the launderer. Public blockchains are not private. Every transaction sits on a permanent public ledger, readable by anyone, forever. A wire from 2011 is inside a bank's archive under a subpoena. A transfer on a public chain is simply there, and it will still be there in 30 years. The technology changed. It did not change the job. On the crypto rails, it made one part of that job considerably worse. The trail no longer erodes, it accumulates. Some of the largest cases in this field were not broken by a bank or a regulator at all. The Russian Laundromat was broken by journalists. Reporters and leaked records assembled a picture no single institution had the standing to assemble, or, frankly, the appetite. Detection is not one system. It is banks, regulators, chain analysts, and reporters, each holding a fragment, and occasionally one of them noticing that their fragment matches somebody else's. So how much of it gets caught? The honest answer is that nobody knows, and anyone who gives you a confident number is selling something. But the shape of the problem is measurable. Investment fraud was the single largest category in the 2025 figures. $8.6 billion in 1 year, in one country, in one category. Crypto ran through a large share of it. 181,565 complaints involved cryptocurrency, more than $11 billion between them. And the losses are not evenly spread. Americans aged 60 and over reported $7.7 billion in losses. One age bracket, 37% higher than the year before. The report also added a category it had never needed in almost 25 years of publishing: artificial intelligence. 22,000 complaints, and close to $900 million. Globally, the estimates are wider and older. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime puts laundered money at between 2 and 5% of global GDP. At the low end, that is roughly $800 billion a year. At the high end, it is $2 trillion. The range is that wide because the thing being measured is designed not to be measured, and most of it is never fully recovered. Money that reaches integration has usually become an asset in someone else's name in another country. Getting it back is a civil process measured in years, sometimes decades. Here is what this case teaches detection. The framework is not a curiosity. Placement, layering, integration, that is the shape underneath the pig butchering scam, the ransomware payment, the corrupt official's property portfolio. Keep this framework in your head, and the next financial crime story you read will organize itself. And the last thing, which took me longest to accept, the machine was never invisible. It was always visible to someone holding the right fragment, a filing, a ledger entry, a deed with a name on it. It was just expensive to watch. That is the actual reason it runs at this scale, not brilliance, cost. If this was useful, a like genuinely helps. It pushes this channel toward people who are being targeted right now, and subscribe, because there is a new case file here most days of the week. Case closed. Follow the money. Monend.